Screening as part of the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival in July is quite an extensive documentary about food, food production, and so many other issues related to that. A film called In Symbiosis. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the director, or co-director perhaps, of the film, Helena Berndl. Helena, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Hello, Peter, and hello, everybody at Movie Metropolis. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Tell me about the origins of this extensive documentary about food and pesticides, food production, the future of food, etc. It's quite a lot in this documentary. How did it all come about?
So, I guess the main starting point was when I was at my when the idea originated that led me to the idea of making the film was when I was studying neuroscience at UCL in London. I in my third year, I my sister approached me and she said, "Helena, have you ever heard anything about this sweetener aspartame?" And I thought, well, I personally I hadn't at that point, and I thought, well, maybe it's something that people may get a little bit too stressed about, but I thought, let me have a look. I'm always very curious about anything really. I would never dismiss an idea. That's just my persona. And so I went to look it up on the university database, and I was quite shocked actually, and intrigued about how much research there was. I didn't expect to find much about it. But this dated back to the 70s, and it was basically it's a very political topic, because there was a period of around 10 years where so this sweetener was discovered, and then by the company Seal and Co, and then was obviously has to go through testing in order to be approved for human consumption. And so there was a period, and this was also in the mainstream media back then. I saw some newspaper articles as well, mainstream newspapers, and it was 92% of non-industry funded research, so independent research, that suggested this is not safe for human consumption. And 100% of industry funded research said this is perfectly safe for human consumption. And then, so I thought, well, how could this possibly be approved? And then it turned out that this was, well, one of these stories, unfortunately, where, the CEO of the company was part of organizing the transition government, the Reagan government. And he basically was in charge of appointing the head of the FDA. And this new head of the FDA was then in place, and then I think it took about a year or two, and the sweetener was then approved for human consumption. And there was also a revolving door scandal where this person then got later on got a job in the company. This basically happens, and I realized, this happens over and over again in the food system. And this was one. I'm telling you the story because this was one of the major turning points where I thought, well, how many things are wrong with our food system. It's not just the way food is grown and produced and processed, but also the whole political side to it. So there are so many elements. It's so convoluted and so complex. There are so many layers to it. And as consumers, we try to, I mean, people try to do different things. One person is very uh, pro-environment, another person may just be looking at what is best for them. But I think when you tackle it the right way, when you look at the at the whole food system as a whole, and you look at all the different elements, and you you then will realize what is really something, what is the way forward that will in the end benefit everyone in a bigger way. And so you don't just, so for me it was always very important to, I learned this through my research and through my experiences. I thought it's very important to look at the whole life cycle of things, to look at all the different aspects. You may not be able to look at every single aspect, but overall, I'm saying look at all the aspects, try to investigate the life cycle of something, and then you can see that some things that may appear as solutions are actually not true solutions, because they may sound good for the environment, but maybe they're not so good for society
Mm.
or for the farmer, or it's very complex. And I thought what I thought was I we wanted to bring this complexity, because this complexity, we wanted to show this in one film, because there are many films that do obviously engage with this topic, but I have not seen a film, I have not come across a film that brings everything in one, where you don't have to go and you don't have to watch 20, 30 different documentaries and also sieve out which one tells you the accurate information. So the viewer will still have to go away and do their own research, but we wanted to stimulate that research. We wanted to, that interest, and give an overview, a good overview. And that was the goal of it. And that's where it started. You asked me where it started, and I give you
Yeah.
that's where it started originally. Was that helpful?
Absolutely. That gives a good backstory to the origins of the documentary. So tell me about your strategy in terms of the people you filmed, the countries that you visited, and filmed to show the various aspects of this issue of food production and the politics of it and all that sort of thing, because there's a lot going on in your film, and I'm interested in your
Yeah.
process.
Yes. So I'll go back to the beginning. So we started in 2017 was our first interview, and it was with a nutritionist who is a very special nutritionist. She's not a standard nutritionist, I would say. She's a very special nutritionist in the sense that she understands the repercussions of food on the multiple levels. And so it was very interesting interviewing her. And she said things in her interview that we at the time, we were just starting out, we didn't fully comprehend yet. It was very interesting. So it was a learning journey for us as well.
Hmm.
And through her, we got a recommendation through her. She suggested another interviewee, Professor Michael Antonio, for example, who's a molecular geneticist, and does a lot of research on glyphosate and GMOs as well. And so we interviewed him. And then what I did, I had done a lot of background research already. I've watched many, many, many documentaries. And I saw several people within these films, or I found them through research articles, and I contacted them. So there was, for example, an Austrian researcher at Boko University who we contacted, and he then led us to the connection to Uganda. He invited us to an excursion where these agroecological scientists from Uganda were coming to Austria to visit. And we interviewed them in Austria, and we then started doing our first edit, I remember. And I said to my co-director Francesco, I said, we're gonna have to go to Uganda. This is impossible. We have to go and see this because you hear this person talking so beautifully and colorfully of this country, and also the all the issues associated with it. And but that's when we said, let's do it, let's go. And that's what we did. And I remember very well when we arrived, I thought and when we were driving around in Uganda, it's this thought. I was looking around and I thought I was expecting something different. It was so lush in so many areas. And I asked myself, how is this possible that these countries with this wealth in natural resources have become poor, so poor, and have become so food poor? And it didn't make sense. And so it became this discovery journey. And we obviously there's a lot of the discovering all this, and all the interviewees that we selected, they're carefully, they're handpicked by me. It's a very careful selection. And and at the same time, I had to go through rigorous interviews with these people as well, because they are not just being interviewed by anyone. They want to know that you are portraying the correct information. And so we had Nora McKeon, for example. She's based in Rome. She's a big researcher in the field of food sovereignty, has been working for decades with, in African villages, with African farming communities. Then we also had, Professor Julia Wright. She's in the UK. She's a professor in agroecological futures. We had Stefano Prato from the Society for International Development. We had these amazing voices and they don't shy back from telling the real story, what has happened. And I think it's really important to know what has actually happened politically, as well as processing wise, and how the food is grown, to really understand why we are where we are. And oh yeah, and then of course we had Sardinia as well. So Sardinia was one of the first countries where we filmed. Well, it's Italy, Sardinia, the island. So the island was one of the first places where we filmed, because we started off with our it was always, the core idea was always the one that we thought, we have to make people understand that there is a difference in the way between the different foods, depending on how they are grown and how they are processed. I think that was always the core idea. And then the political side of it went with it. But Sardinia was, with the longest lived population, was one of these, like a sample population, to show what are the examples in that population that makes them live so long, and what did they actually eat. So they were an organism, in a way, a good example for this in symbiosis. And that was one of the first countries, one of the first islands where we filmed, one of the first places as well. So I would say these were the main places. If you would like to know anything about any other places, let me know.
No, but that's fine, because you've given me such a good overview of this excellent documentary, which covers so much ground, and I'm intrigued in the way you use the title, in symbiosis, because symbiosis is, of course, that definition about the intersection of organisms
Mm.
and of people, and how various things fit together. So I thought that was an interesting choice of title.
Oh, thank you. It was it was actually we had different titles before. And it was when we were actually discussing this population in Sardinia, when we suddenly thought they live in symbiosis with the environment. And 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 that's when we just suddenly realized it's like this should be the title. And that was how it came about, but there were other titles before.
Sure. Now,
Yeah.
you've mentioned Francesco Maria Gallo, who
Yes.
co-directed with you. How did you work together on making this documentary? What was your processes?
So he's the cinematographer and the co-director. Um, I would say he's the more creative. Not saying that I'm not creative.
Mm,
I do have a creative eye. I always love the arts, and but in the sense of I have a bit more of a structured brain, I would say. And so it was a very nice uh, cooperation, a very nice working together with him, because he would take me out of my rigidity sometimes, and vice versa. I would rein him in a little bit when it was getting a little bit when it came to other parts of the production, where I said, well, no, we need to do it this way. This has to be done this way. But he would definitely, he would help me with to get rid of my rigidity in many ways, and I learned a lot from him, and I also started shooting. Um, but yeah, he's an amazing cinematographer, and he works so well with people, and he has an amazing skill with making anybody, the interviewee, the whole set comfortable. So everything felt very organic in a way, very natural, there was never, and you could see it with the interviewees. We made them feel they're not being filmed. They're just part of a nice observation in a way. And
mm,
they were always very grateful as well, and people really went above and beyond to help us, because we are, as you know, we are a truly independent production. We almost entirely self-funded the film. Um, and so yeah, so we worked very well together. We both, by the way, also edited. Well, he's the main editor. I joined in at some point, and also began editing. Um, but so we in the end we did the edit together, and of course, again, that's where probably our relationship, it was a real push and pull in a way. Um, so sometimes he would say, "This doesn't work. We have to get rid of it." And and I said, "Well, we cannot get rid of it. This is a really important topic." So I then sometimes went and did my own edit and presented it to him, and he's like, wow, you made it work.
yeah.
And so it was this kind of, but without him, without this interaction, the film wouldn't be what it is. So it was it obviously was a very, very, very tough edit.
Mm,
And it wasn't happy times all the time. There was some very difficult, there were some very, very difficult situations, but we got through it, and we fought through it sometimes, and we made it work. But the nice thing is that we always agreed on our vision. We always agreed on what is important, and what what we don't want to say, and that we really stay true to our message and that we do not compromise on anything. That was the key to everything.
Okay.
And yeah, so
Well, can I take that then one step further? What are you hoping audiences,
mhm.
people who see your documentary, take away from it that will help to advance the future of food production?
So I may have mentioned a little something earlier. So the main thing was to give people the opportunity to watch one film where they basically get a really good overview
Mm.
of the food system, how it has, why we are there where we are, how it has developed,
Yep.
and um, and this is a, it's a continuous development, really, and you know, choices can be made, and often, unfortunately, political choices are made the wrong way, but it's meant to give people hope in a way that we are actually stronger than we think. We are the ones that have, we are so many, there's so many of us, and we do actually have a choice in a way, and we just we you need to be informed, um, to be able to make the right choices. As I mentioned earlier, perhaps was, if you don't see the whole picture, you may think, for example, let's just take the example of a GMO, a particular GMO that is advertised as drought resistant may sound like a wonderful idea, but you should perhaps know that there are already drought-resistant varieties. Naturally they do exist. So, and that there are ways of farming that will, you know, safe that they will protect the environments, and they will actually give people a stable, reliable food source. And but if you don't know all this, then, and if you haven't seen these other types of farming, and if you haven't seen how we've actually come to a barren landscape in certain parts of the world,
Mm.
why this really is, then you may think, yes, we need this crop, this engineered crop, to save humanity and feed the world. And you may have noticed there's always talk about maize, wheat, and rice. This is three crops. There are so many crops on this planet.
Mm.
And we need a diversity of things. We don't need three crops um, that are controlled by big corporations with patents. So it's a much more interesting story. Food is a much more interesting story, I find. And so we wanted to give the viewer all these bits of information. And what we never wanted to do, by the way, was to preach. We are not telling people what to do. We just wanted to provide the information,
Mhm.
the information the interviewees, they speak for themselves, I think, we think. And and the viewer should form their own opinion, because I think any prescriptive idea is not very long-lived, is very short-lived. It may have a very strong impact, if you hit hard with certain facts, how some documentaries do it, and people may change their diet overnight. Um, but what I've seen from experience is that this then changes back most of the time between 3 months and a year later. So I always thought that, unless, and this is also from my own experience, because I changed as well, and we changed, but it wasn't overnight.
Mm.
It took some time, and I think, And I think this is all part of the process, and it's part of learning, and it's part of being human, and it's part of understanding our world and our society and what's going on and what the decisions are that are being made for us, and to hopefully show people that they can make some of their own decisions, actually. That was the main the main thing we wanted to achieve with this film. So I hope it will encourage people. There are so many other documentaries that, that focus on the individual topics that we've
Mm.
touched upon.
Yep.
There are very, very, very good documentaries. There are also some not so good ones that maybe a little bit more not describing it accurately enough, I would find. But there are some very, very good documentaries, and they would focus on each of these topics for, let's say, an hour or an hour and a half. So you can obviously then expand on this much more. Um, but so I hope that we can encourage people to, to look for this a little bit more, and to grow that knowledge. I think the knowledge is important. I think that was the main thing, to give people knowledge. Yeah.
Yes. And as I say, with a number of documentary filmmakers, film can also act as agents of change for people to take away information, take away what they see in a film, and to then act upon it, be it socially,
Yes,
politically, personally, but making their own decisions about that process.
absolutely. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How interesting to
Yes.
hear all that. So the film will be screening in Symbiosis at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. Where else has the film screened, and what responses have you had?
So we've been at Rain Dance. That
Ah,
was our world premiere. So that was my dream come true.
mm,
Actually, that was very exciting. And we got an honorable mention there, which was beautifully presented, and the highlighting the importance of the film. And it was very nice. The basically they said, this is it's a documentary that, pulls all these the threads together of all these
mm,
different subjects, and does it in a way that is comprehensible. And I thought that was very nice to hear that. And it was also at Leeds International Film Festival
uh-huh.
in the UK. And there was Westminster Film Festival. Then we were also in Cambodia International Film Festival. That was a very special one, I have to say. And it was very nice to. I was very proud to be amongst the films that were presented there, because the festival director, and the whole team, the whole festival team, they're very, very, very keen on, educating the new generations. They had a lot of the screenings, a lot of the short films that were screened there, they were screened at the university for the university children, which I thought was brilliant.
Mm.
And obviously other people could come as well, but it was a very special festival. And the people that have been in this, who have engaged with what has happened to food and to food sovereignty for for these past decades, the people who are real experts in this field, and who saw the film either, for example, in Cambodia or at other festivals. It was nice to hear from them that they had never seen it put together like this.
Mhm.
To hear that they thought this was so well done. And they are the experts. They have been to these protests, that we are showing some of the archive footage that shows protests from the 80s.
Yep.
Some of these people have been on these protests, and they said it's very well put together. And yeah, and that they haven't seen it done like this before, and that sort of affirmed my wish of making something that hasn't been done like this before,
Hmm.
because that was I was kind of a little bit fighting for this, because as you know, it's an extensive film,
Yep.
and obviously we had discussions whether we should be doing episodes at some point,
Mm.
a series, as in a series rather than one film. But I always thought, but then we're going back to, there are already series of different types of films. And what I find is people would start a series and then you get distracted by life and you don't finish it.
Mm.
Whereas I thought, no, I think it should be in one film. But we broke it up in chapters to make it a little bit more digestible.
Yes.
And yeah,
Okay.
so
No, great to hear all that. And I'm glad you
that.
mentioned the archival footage
Mhm.
that you've used. I mean, there's so much going on in your documentary, which is
Mm,
quite a revelation, I think, for a lot of people. Even though, as you said, there have been other documentaries about food, etc. But you do draw so many threads together to make audiences think about um, where to go in the future in terms of food production. And I mean, the issues of pesticides, genetically modified food. I mean, there's so much going on
mm,
there. So,
yeah.
congratulations and all that. My
Oh, thank you so much.
pleasure. My Zoom is rapidly running out, but I do want to ask you, Helena, if you're working on other projects or other films at the moment.
So, I mean, my head is filled with ideas. So, we're not currently working on anything new yet. We are still in the process of getting our message out there. But we need to, I need to start trying to get some funding because it was
Mm,
so difficult to do this without we started basically without any backing by anybody,
wow.
no individual, no studio, no distributor, nothing.
Right.
And so for the next project we definitely it was immensely tough to do it this way. So for
Mm,
the next project we would need to raise some funding before we can do this again. I can't put ourselves through this again.
sure. I, I understand. Yeah,
Yes, yeah. But
absolutely.
there are lots of ideas, and there are some very important things that need to be made. Um,
Right.
yeah, with regard to what's going on in the food landscape. Absolutely.
Good. Hopefully that will come about and the power of
Yeah.
filmmaking to influence change. Look, congratulations, Helena. We've been speaking to Helena Berndl, who is the co-director of In Symbiosis, which is screening in July as part of the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. And Helena, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you as well, Peter. Thank you for your time so late.
My pleasure, my pleasure, and I wish you
Thank you,
well.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, and you as well.
okay, all the
Thank
best.
you.
Goodbye.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye.